Hi there, welcome to our third video on solving quadratic equations by factorising. Let's start with a skill I need you to know from prior knowledge. Previously on Hegarty Maths you've solved equations like the following three things. Pause the video, make sure you can solve for x in each of the following three cases. Okay, here are the answers. I got x is -1, x is -1/2, x is -5/3. These two are particularly worth just quick mention. They're two-step equations. You thought of a number x, you doubled it, added 1 and got 0. So to undo it, you subtract 1 from both sides and then you divide both sides by 2 and you get x is -1/2. Here you subtract 5 and then divide by 3, x is -5/3. Okay, that skill I'm going to need you absolutely okay with for this particular video. The next thing I just want to talk about, I don't want you to do these questions now. Could you pause the video, look at the following three factorised questions and just describe how you would do each one. I don't want you to do it, I just want you to talk about what type of quadratic is it and what's the type of thing you would do. Now the first one, before you launched into factorising it, I'd like you to have a look at the coefficients and think, there's a factor of 2 here, here and here, so I could factorise out a 2, get x squared plus 11x plus 30, and then we would factorise the quadratic expression here into x add 5, x add 6, because 5 multiplied by 6 is 30, 5 add 6 is 11. Now in the other two cases, the difference here is, although you've got 2x squared in both these cases, 2 is not a factor of 2, 5 and 3, and 2 is not a factor of 2, 7 and 3. So I can't do this little trick again, and this was the case where I was factorising by grouping. So these two were both using the method of factorising by grouping. Please go back to that skill if you are unfamiliar with that. This is going to be absolute necessity in this video. In fact, I'm going to deal with those two particular quadratics in the forthcoming examples, so I'm not going to do them right now. Let's go straight into examples. We're asked to solve 2x squared add 5x add 3 is equal to 0. Now 2, I can't just divide a 2 out here and do the same old trick I did in this first example. I've got to factorise this by grouping. So that takes a bit of time. That's almost working. So maybe let's go over here and do the working here. Let's just call, let's say, working. So we're trying to factorise 2x squared add 5x add 3. Remember when we did that, the first step was to do 2 multiplied by 3. 2 multiplied by 3 is 6. And then we asked ourselves what two numbers multiply to 6 and at the same time add up to this 5 here. And with a bit of thought, maybe you'll have got 2 and 3. So we're going to split this 5x up into 2x and 3x. Doesn't matter which way round you write it. So we're going to say 2x squared add 2x add 3x add 3. Then we factorise the first two terms separately to the next two terms. Let's factorise out as much as possible 2x and we get x add 1. And here we're going to factorise a positive 3 and again we get x add 1. Remember how factorising by grouping works, we always get the same bracket here and here. And factorising out the x add 1 at the front, we would get 2x add 3 left in the second bracket. And there you go, that is the factorised expression for this. So going back to our problem, we can therefore say that x add 1, 2x add 3, that is the factorised form of that expression. Well, that thing must be equal to 0. And we've got two terms multiplying to give 0. So either the first case, the first term is 0, or the second term is equal to 0 here. In the first case I subtract 1 off both sides and I get x is -1 as an answer, and in this case here we practice this in the starter, it's two-step. I've got to first subtract 3 off both sides and I get therefore that 2x is -3, and I divide both sides by 2 and I get that x is therefore -3/2. So I'll probably state my answers over here. X is -1, x is -3/2, and there you go, we have solved that quadratic equation equaling 0. Next one. Pause the video, have a go. Right, step 1, we're going to try and factorise this. So let's go and try and factorise 2x squared add 7x add 3. This is our working, remember. First thing we do is we do 2 multiplied by 3 is equal to 6. Then we ask ourselves the question, can you think of two numbers that multiply to 6 and add to 7? I can, 6 and 1. So we're going to break up that 7x into 6x and 1x. So let's say 2x squared, add 6x, add 1x, we just write as that, add 3. We're going to factorize the first two terms separately from the second two terms, so draw a little line there. I'm going to say this is 2x, x, add 3. Here, there's no common factor in x and 3 other than 1, so factorize out a positive 1, and we get in our bracket x add 3. Remember, we'll always get the same bracket here and here. And that we can factorize out the front, we get x add 3, 2x add 1. So going back up to our problem, we were asked to solve this quadratic equal to 0. We can therefore say that x add 3, 2x add 1, which is the factorized form of that, must be 0. So therefore this bracket is 0, x add 3 is 0, or this bracket is equal to 0. And taking away 3 off both sides, I'd get x is negative 3. There's my answer. Here I have to take away 1 off both sides. I'd get 2x is negative 1. Then divide both sides by 2, and I'd get x is negative a half is the other solution. So here I should write x is negative 3 or x is negative a half on my two answers. Next one. I think you should just pause the video and have a go at this one yourself. I'm going to do it without talking. Okay, I've done the factorization there, and I'm going to use it to solve the problem. Therefore we know we can write x add 4, 3x add 1 must be equal to 0. So therefore either the first expression is 0 or the second expression must equal 0. They're the only two options. Subtracting 4 from both sides, x is negative 4 as an answer here. Subtracting 1 off both sides, we'd get that 3x is negative 1. Dividing both sides subsequently by 3, we get that x is negative a third. And there are our answers. X is therefore negative 4 or x is equal to negative a third. This one, pause the video, make sure you have a go yourself. So I'm going to factorize without talking again, so either you do this yourself or you just watch me, but I'm not going to talk it through anymore. And there you go, I've factorized that expression. So rewriting the top, I can say that x subtract 2, 4x add 3 must be 0. This bracket is 0, x subtract 2 is 0, or the other option is 4x add 3 is 0. Here I can add 2 to both sides and I'd get x is equal to positive 2. Here I can subtract 3 off both sides and then divide by 4. I get myself x is therefore negative 3/4. And they're my two potential answers, and I am done. And that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.